Well, the Biden administration is actively trying to cover up and hide the dumbest and most reckless decision by any president in modern American history, the decision to destroy the Nord Stream pipeline, as Russia now says war with the United States is very close. Thanks, President Biden. And the head of NATO just said the quiet part out loud, admitting that the war started back in 2014. And back then, NATO started training Ukrainian soldiers.
The war started in 2014. And since 2014, NATO allies have provided support to Ukraine.
So much for your unprovoked war propaganda that you've been spreading over the past few months. So, over the past week, the Biden administration has tried to create a panic in the United States in order to distract all of us from Biden's dumbass move on destroying the Nord Stream pipeline, which could push us into an energy Armageddon, the likes of which we've never seen before. And by the way, there is growing evidence that we are heading for absolute calamity of historic proportions in the West and Western governments that would far surpass that energy crisis that Europe experienced back in 2014. Back then, when natural gas prices skyrocketed, blackouts occurred all over Europe, and back then, no pipeline was destroyed. This is way worse now. But you could just ask the people of Bulgaria what 2014 and their energy crisis was like. The answer for them? People froze to death because they didn't have natural gas to heat their homes. Ask the people of Slovakia what 2014 was like. They declared a state of emergency in that country. We have new data out today showing just how bad the energy problem actually is in 2023, not only in Europe, but in the United States. And we're going to look at two main contributors to this disaster. These are man-made contributions to this disaster. Number one, the Nord Stream act of terrorism by the United States. Number two, the globalists' push for a Green New Deal to eliminate fossil fuels or hydrocarbons, whatever you want to call them. Both of these are man-made crises, and the globalists who want all of us to get off fossil fuels are absolutely thrilled about it. Absolutely thrilled about it. All of this, of course, is converging into a perfect storm for the West. And that's what we are starting to see. And due to those skyrocketing food prices and those food shortages, this week the Wall Street Journal had the guts to say this in a new piece that they just published. They want you to skip breakfast in order to save money. Yeah, they really actually published that in the Wall Street Journal. Well, now we know in the hours following that bombshell report by legendary reporter Seymour Hersh, the Biden administration authorized the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. The deep state, with the help of the mainstream media, mobilized and snapped to attention like obedient dogs. They brought us a brilliant cover story to start to instill panic in all of us.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. It has happened again today. Another aerial object was shot down by U.S. warplanes.
Tonight, the growing mystery and the race to recover those unidentified objects shot down by U.S. fighter jets.
Yes, UFOs and balloons are invading the United States. Well, as NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden pointed out, this balloon UFO story was all in an effort to distract us from the real story. The real story is the Nord Stream pipeline and the fallout that is now unfolding before our eyes. This is one of the biggest stories of all time. Here's what Snowden said about it. It's not aliens. I wish it were aliens, but it's not aliens, he says. It's just the old engineered panic, an attractive nuisance ensuring national security reporters get assigned to investigate balloon bullshit rather than budgets or bombings, a la the Nord Stream pipeline. Until next time, yes, an elaborate lie constructed by the deep state. Do you remember, of course, Mike Pompeo, former head of the CIA, actively saying this about how they teach people to lie at the CIA?
What's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses.
Yeah, do you feel used by this UFO balloon story? You should, because they're using us, and they hope that you're too stupid to do your own homework. The truth is, Biden overplayed his hand here, pushing Europe to dramatically recalibrate its abusive relationship with America. And I'm seeing it in newspapers across Europe. Now Europe faces an energy crisis. Not this year, but next year. The real numbers show us that next year things will be a disaster for Europe. As Zero Hedge reports, the race to secure natural gas and fuel for the winter of 2023 into 2024 hasn't even started yet. With virtually non-existent supplies, Europe is heading for a disaster. It writes, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, just issued an alert. admitting that the crisis in Europe will hit all countries, not just Germany. Remember, energy prices have skyrocketed and people can't afford to pay their bills, so they're turning off the heat right now. Businesses have closed their doors. Here's the latest data. Take a look at this. This is unbelievable. Fuel oil up 27%. Gas, utilities, 26%. Transportation up 14%. Electricity, 11%. Food at home, not even going out to eat, up 11%. Food away from home, 8%. And the list goes on and on from there. And we learned this week that the energy crisis is actually much worse than we've been hearing, because the European Union, get this, spent nearly 800 billion euros trying to hide the real problem from all of us. That's right, the EU forked over that amount of money to try and hide or shield us from the real problems. And Germany spent nearly $300 billion on this hide the salami program. Now, Seymour Hersh now says the reason that Biden blew up the pipeline was to force Germany into submission, he said in an interview, to keep Germany under our thumb in order to keep them in the war in Ukraine. Listen.
Here's what Biden did, and this is what I think the ultimate point of the story, and why so many people, even the intelligence community, are very troubled by it. What he did is he said, I'm in a big war with Ukraine. It's not looking good. I want to be sure I get German and West European support, and I know winter's coming, and if it's going to be bad, I don't want the Germans to say we got to check out because we're getting massacred. We'll be massacred with no cheap fuel. And our economy will go bonkers. We're going to check out and we're going to open up the gas line, which they could do. So he took away that option.
So this was our plan, that Germany was going to be backing off the war in Ukraine, and the United States was getting nervous that they were going to do that and weaken our hands, so we blew up their pipeline. This morning, we learned now that Germany is now taking steps towards a full investigation of this pipeline explosion, and a growing chorus of German politicians are furious that a NATO ally would blow up their main source of fuel and then charge that same ally 5 times the price to receive natural gas from America. So add to the pipeline mistake with another man-made mistake. The WEF pushed to eliminate fossil fuels in the West, and you have a recipe for total disaster. This week, almost like it's a joke, the European Union announced they're going to get rid of combustion engine cars by the year 2035, 12 years from now, and gas-powered trucks by the year 2040. Are they nuts? The answer is yes, they are. You've closed down nuclear power plants, and now you're scrambling to reopen nuclear power plants. You're trying to push us all towards solar and wind, which don't work. You have no oil and gas in Europe that you produce. You're heavily reliant on foreign energy sources to power your economies and meet the daily energy needs of its citizens, and you're shutting it all down. Even some EU members are calling it madness, and they're warning that there is no escaping it. Take a look at these headlines. I mean, they've literally committed to this madness, and it's almost like they need to have this collapse in order to prove that it all won't work. Just chew on all of this. As your government leaders lie straight to your face, it's incumbent upon all of us to protect our own families right now and not listen to these lying politicians.